Who is the fastest self-made billionaire ever? While it took Warren Buffett 55 years to join the Billionaires Club, Jay Walker literally did it in less than a year. He launched Priceline.com during the dot-com bubbles, and his net worth instantly jumped from the zero to the billions. But that wasn't sustainable because when the bubble burst, his net worth crashed as well, while Buffett is still on the top of the list, and he doesn't seem to go anywhere anytime soon. Forbes covered, and that's the kind of the wealth you want to build. The game of the money isn't easy, it's thought competitive and ruthless. And if you don't know the rules, you are doomed to fail. The problem with the most people is that so they might work hard their entire lives, but end up poor and end up the journey because they don't know how the game works. So if you want to find yourself on the other side of the coin, you better master your rules. Number one, money does grow on the trees. I'm sure that many of you have been taught the opposite, but the reality is that if you don't operate from this perspective, you will forever be poor. You can't trade your time for money your entire life. That's why you need to plant the trees that will earn your money when you are not there. It's not as necessary as it sounds. Do you know how difficult it is to plant a tree? First, you need to plant the seeds, but the seeds is useless if you're not planted in the nutrient-rich soil. The tree isn't going to grow by itself. You need to water and to take care of it, and it's definitely not going to grow overnight. Some trees literally grow from 10 to 12 to 20 or even 30 years, but once it's grown, it will keep producing fruits with minimum effort. The same goes to the assets. Once you build up the business or the saved up enough to make the good investments, it keeps generating income even if you are not there, because at some point you might get old, sick, and you won't be able to sustain your job. So even if you are making $500 an hour and could get back poor instantly if you haven't planted enough trees in your garden. Next, there is no limit to how much you can spend. I remember where I was living a paycheck to paycheck, I was on the extremely tight budget. I used to think that if I would be making even slightly more than I do now, I will start investing, but what ended up happening is that I just started spending more. In fact, when I started making the multiple times more, all that happens is my expenses just keep getting higher and higher. If you do not budget and discipline yourself, you stick to the certain budget, you won't able to save money to invest even if you make the hundreds grants a month. There are infinite ways you can spend to the 100 grants. So instead of the constantly pushing that investing lines higher and higher, discipline yourself to stick to the smaller budget. If Elon Musk could survive on $1 a day in the United States, you will definitely survive with the few $100. Don't get me wrong, enjoying the money you earned with your hard work, travel, or do whatever you desire, but stick to a budget that's lower than your income because you have to acquire assets. Number three, money is the lifelong game. When I get serious about the money and investing, I have had this image in my mind that when I start making so and so, I would need to stick to the specific budget, and I will finally retire and enjoy the fruits of my hard work. But all that happened when I started making that much is that I realized that's not enough and I have to make more. In fact, if you stop managing it, it will stop generating income. Just because you purchase a house, you instantly won't find tenants. If you don't take care of it, it might even turn into the liability. The idea where you create an asset and literally do nothing is just nonsense. Even if you build a successful business, you will have competitors who try to take you down every single day. So forget the idea of the return in one day. Of course, you can automate some of your duties, decrease your working hours, but in general, these games never ends as long as you are willing. And the clear example of the world's richest people who continue to work even if they don't have to. The next rule is probably the most important lessons in this video. Money won't solve your insecurities. Well, all have insecurities, and a lot of the time we buy that expensive cars or to move to the bigger house or buy the newer phone because we want to be accepted or admired by society. That expensive cars will make you feel good for a week or two, but then it will become normal, but your insecurity won't go anyway, so you won't so you would want better and more expensive car. It's never-ending cycles that keeps people who makes a lot of the money. If it's acceptable acceptance you are seeking, learn how to better manage your emotions. The truth is that your insecurities will drain down to your bank account but will still stay there. Instead, improve your social skills, learn how to boost your confidence. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy an expensive car or a private jet. Go ahead and buy whatever you desire, but don't do it to feel your insecurity. There are better and cheaper ways to do that. Number 5. Don't let anyone to know that you have money. We love to brag about how much money we make at the end of the day in the age of the capitalisms. That's what defines your social status. At least that's how the most people think about it. The problem is that money is like the magnet. Suddenly people will be nice to you, everyone would want to get a piece of it. Of course, it will make you feel good and respected, but what will come at the price that's not worth it. And if they won't be able to get it nicely, they will sue you and get it hard way. That's the reality we live in. Even if you're good for making $1 million a year, don't let anyone know. Stay humble. Don't grab about it and keep making more. Number 6. Greatest wealth transfers happens during crisis. When the economy crashed in 2008, the unemployment rate skyrocketed because the companies couldn't keep paying the bills. Millions of the people become jobless, homeless, and poor. However, some people aggressively began investing and became much wealthier after the crisis because the biggest transfer of the wealth take place in the crisis, and you are ready to grab the opportunity, you can become the overnight success. Remember, Jay Walker, whom we talked about in the beginning of the video, who joined the billionaire club in under a year, took advantage of the dot-com bubble. Although his wealth wasn't sustainable, he still managed to keep hundreds of the millions of the dollars. Another example is Mark Cuban. He even was said, you have been lucky to become a billionaire because if it wasn't for the 1998 financial crisis, he wouldn't be a billionaire. I have the entire video about him. The link will be in the descriptions. Instead of looking at the financial crisis as the hoax created by the government or the 1% of the rip of the poor, take advantage it as they do. Understand how the system works, study the past crises to understand how and why they start, and be ready to be on the receivable side when the next one takes place. As you get older, your expenses will grow. Have you realized that every single year, one way or another, you spend more and more? $100 was a lot of the money back when we were teens. Now it barely covers your gas bills. And as you get older, your expenses will just keep increasing. That's the nature of our lives, especially if you start a family. Most people do not bother themselves about the future because they are making a decent amount of their money today. But when their expenses exceed their income, they start complaining. that they don't make enough to invest. So if you do not make sure that your income is increasing every year, soon you will trap yourself in paycheck to paycheck cycle that will keep you poor for the rest of your life. And that's why you have to take the next rule extremely seriously. Wealth accumulates over time. As you can't grow a tree overnight, you can't grow wealth overnight. Remember, the earlier you invest, the better with the power of the compounding you can become. Rich with even the $100. No wonder why world's greatest investors started investing at the age of 11. What were you doing when you were 11? Here's the fun fact: you can make your gratitude a millionaire just by investing $1,160, which is equal to the price of the new smartphone. Because in the 100 years, without a single additional investments, it will grow into $1 million. You probably won't lie till then, but I'm sure your grandchild will be thankful. Let's say he won't be greedy and will keep it for his grandson for another 100 years. It will grow almost to $1 billion. Of course, it's pointless to wait for so long, but the earlier you start, the faster you're going to reach the positions where you will be making enough or do not worry about your bills again. It took Warren Buffett 55 years to make his first billion and just 3 years to make his second billion. In fact, he made 98% of his fortune after his 55th birthday. Conclusions: here you go. There are the 8 most important rules of the money that you should keep in mind if you want to get in financially free. So, what is your favorite one out of these 8 lessons? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. Until next time.